attitude is rather strange. They're identifiable by the ebony blackness of their skin and by a rather elaborate and splendid bouffant hairdo. They also, if it will help you to make your minds up, seldom break into a trot.
That's vital, that bit of information.
Well, it's a cape made of raffia. It's an iron bar, which lumberjacks use, and it's an African tribe, or a member of an African tribe. Judy, it's your turn. Those two chaps talk to each other, can't think why.
Well, I don't know. They do it all the time.
They don't talk to you, do they?
Sometimes.
Could I just have one place? Yes, you want to know something? Could we get the cards out this side?
Well, the cloak. It would be very uncomfortable, I think, made of raffia, and I just don't think I believe you, Joan. I mean, you know, I would if I could, but I don't.
I'm going to have to hurry you up,
Oh,
Judy.
I'll hurry.
No, just a bit.
No, it's all right, because your African tribe makes me think it should be, and so I won't, and I'll go for Frank, and I think it's his friend's tool.
Yeah, he said it was the lumberjack's necessary. True or bluff?
Thank you very much.
Aha! No. Nothing to do with lumberjacks. Nothing to do with lumberjacks. Got to do with something. One of the other definitions must be true. Oh, yes. So, there you are. It does indeed mean a member of that particular African tribe. Score standing at 4-2. Frank Muir's team has won.
At last.
And so, we shall lever out some more words from the deep freeze next week. Until when, goodbye from Edward Woodward, Noel Edmonds, Judy Geeson, Joan Bakewell, Patrick Campbell, Frank Muir. And goodbye. Good evening. This is Call My Bluff, where the chief brush salesman is Frank Muir.
My guests, one of them is entirely new to the programme and one is an old friend. And the new guest to the programme is an actress, or she was an actress, but she's since become a producer, and her baby is about 2 months old now. Gemma Jones. My second guest we've saved up for the last couple of shows of the programme, because we always have him in every series. He's that splendid bluffer, the Nurayev of motor racing, Graham Hill.
The other brush salesman, Patrick Campbell.
The other brush salesman. Good evening. This evening, both my guests have come galloping to my side from the four corners of the earth. Well, two of them anyway. Because the first one is an indescribably beautiful actress who's just come from Costa Rica, and her name is Alexandra Bastedo. And the other one's just arrived on an emu from New Zealand. You've seen him a lot. They're messing around with doctors, Mr. Robin Nedwell.
I see no reason why we shouldn't start. Now, we ring the bell and we get a... There you have a word, Kizilbash, and as you probably recall, Frank Muir and his team will define this word 3 different ways. 2 of the definitions aren't true. One is, that's the one that Patrick and Co are going to try and find out. So what about the word, Frank?
Well, Kizilbash, as those of you who are familiar with Indian languages, your Hobson Jobson, is a kind of mixed-up Afghan. No, not a dog necessarily. No, not a dog, really. It's a chap. He's a Persianized Turk who lives in Afghanistan. Not a Persianized Afghan who lives in Turkey, or Persianized, or an Afghan Persian who lives in Turkey, or a Turkey who lives in Persia, who's partly Afghan. You must follow me very clearly. It is a
I've done it.
It is a Persianized Turk who lives up the Khyber Pass.
Graham Hill.
Well, a Kazilbash is a Sudanese throwing stick, as used by the Mahdi's light infantry to bring down Kitchener's cavalry, drop his tweeds, as it were. And it's a weighted stick about 1 yard long, which, if used with vigour and accuracy, can seriously incommode a camel, a cantering camel, at 50 paces.
Gemma Jones.
Kizilbash is a substitute for butter, which was commonly used in the Balkans, and it's a very greasy mixture of hog's lard and beef suet. And the Balkans used it to spread on their black bread, but not only that, it could also be used to make candles if they put it in a bowl and put a wick in it and lit the wick.
That's a good idea.
Well, why not? Well, it's hog's lard and beef suet. I thought that was a description of this programme for a minute. No, it's mock butter, and a kind of stick you throw at camels, and it's Persianized Turk in Afghanistan. Patrick.
When Frank said, I think you're Hobson Jobson, I failed to understand what that meant.
Yes,
please,
it's a dictionary of
not required.
Indian
Not
words.
required. It isn't your Hobson Jobson Persian Turkish anyway, or is it? Well, it certainly isn't a throwing stick for felling camels at the range of 50 yards. Ever tried it? Ever tried the reprisals that the camels engage upon?
What, 50 paces?
Yeah, they can do it. It might be this kind of greasy, lardy butter, but I think it's your average Jobson up the Khyber Pass.
Well, now, Frank did say something like that, didn't he? It was a Persianized Turk in Afghanistan. Now, you boxwaller, true or bluff?
He looks a bit happy. Bit happy.
Ah! Why a Persianized Turk living in Afghanistan? How do they single them out? I don't know. And you're not saying anything, are you, Frank? Murmurdotes.
A murmurdote. It's a kind of West Country pet name for a small red and brown bird. A regular party-coloured immigrant into Britain during the early months of summer. Now, the murmurdote had got a habit of following the plough, picking up little bits of stuff, what the plough has left behind. And consequently, this, either murmurdote or wheat ear, it can also be known as a fallower.
That follows the plough.
Exactly. Exactly. You've got it in one.
Awful lot of names.
Next.
And next name is Robin Nedwell.
Well, murmurdotes. It's a medieval word, you see, and it's used to describe a kind of fit of the sulks or a sullen grumpiness or non-togetherness amongst a group of people. For instance, it might be applied to something like King John, with him having his strong right arm applied to signing the Magna Carta at Runnymede, could well have been described as having a touch of the murmurdotes. You see?
Dwell on that while I invite Alexandra Bastedo to tell us more.
Murmurdotes is the Latin for a group of Roman heretics
whose heresy was to dance naked round an empty wineskin. This, allegedly, was to make mock of St. Matthew, chapter 9, verse 17. Neither do men put new wine into old bottles, else the bottles break and the wine runneth out.
Kind of reverent silence there. It's a sort of a bird, then. It's sulkiness, and it's kind of Roman heretic dancing around an empty wineskin. Frank?
I don't think you were allowed to have a word for sulkiness in medieval times. You just got thumped if you were sulky. You didn't have a special word for it, surely. It doesn't look an old word, does it? Momadotes. Momadotes and daddy dotes and little lambs. It's the red and brown. It's a red and brown bird, isn't it? Or the. You couldn't dance round. Where did it come from in the Bible?
It was to make mock of. Didn't come from
which book of the Bible?
St. Matthew, chapter 9, verse 17.
It's pretty good for Romans to mock it, isn't it? Yes, I'll choose that one.
The one about the Roman heritage?
Yes.
Alexandra, true or bluff? She'll tell you now.
Peculiar.
Are you right?
No.
No, it wasn't that. Who gave the true definition? Somewhere.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Medieval murmur. Well, it goes down the hall.
Medieval fit of the sulks?
I said we start how we mean to go on.
What is the next word? Kabak. Kabak? I don't know. Graham.
A kabak is a Russian drinking saloon. Or, if you like, a Bolshevik boozer. And I met a few of them. But anyway, it's not a bloke, it's a place about as cosy as a British rail waiting room, where comrades can foregather and swill vodka. Quite possibly under the beady eyes of a barmaid disguised as a... No, hang on. Under the beady eyes of a KGB agent disguised as a barmaid.
He's awfully good at driving racing motor cars.
Thank you.
Gemma Jones.
A kabak is a South African musical instrument, and it consists of a hollow box made of sandalwood, and out of this box protrude bamboo strips of varying lengths, and it's played by thrumming these sticks with the thumb, vibrating them, which makes a very lovely thumbing sound.
Yep. All right, then it's Frank's go.
Kabak, or Tiabak, it could be, was a Czechoslovakian gymnastic society. Emblem a falcon, because Kabak is the Czech name for falcon, and it was set up in order to unify and cultivate the minds and bodies of Bohemians.
What a charming thought.
Sounds awfully respectable. Well, there you have it. It's kind of Russian saloon bar, that kind of thing. Czech gymnastic group and South African musical instrument. Robin, your go.
Bohemian Appreciation Society. From Frank, don't really go for that in a big way, quite honestly. Not much to appreciate about Bohemians anyway. The Bolshevik boozer and the KGB were terribly romantic, particularly the kind of transvestite secret agents. But no, I'm going for your actual thrumming box, because I like the idea of thrumming.
That was the South African type instrument. Gemma Jones, true or bluff, I wonder? I say. Someone must have given the true definition, and he or she, no, rather he or he must own up now.
Not the Bolshevik.
No! You got it there, Ace, somewhere. That's how he drives the cars, you know. One breaks down, chucks it away, climbs into another. Anyway, that's what it means. Let me see, what does it mean? Yes, it was the Russian saloon bar. Yeah, right, Russian saloon bar or something like the railway waiting room. Tinley is the next word, and Robin Nedwell.
Well, a tinley, you see, is a kind of portable bonfire, but with a difference. It has great religious significance to papists. Now, if you see a group of papists on All Hallows Eve leaping around with a great burning bunch of straw, they're not mad because they are celebrating in their own symbolic way the release of the damned souls from purgatory. And they are doing it with a tinley.
Right. Alexandra, if you please.
A tinley was an early form of domestic iron used and marketed in America in the 1840s. Tinley also enjoyed vogue as a verb. In fact, land's sakes, a Massachusetts housewife might have cried, if I ain't gotten a mound of jib shirts to Tinley.
I think they're crying that sort of thing all the time. Patrick.
A tinley, more properly and more, well, extensively, ought to be called a tinley insufflator. It's an instrument invented by a Dr. Tinley for stopping nosebleeding. It's a clever little device. It's a little elastic balloon, the same size as a nostril, that is blown up when it fills the nostril and causes the vein previously ruptured to clot.
Doesn't it come down the other side?
No, it stays where it is.
It isn't a disease of sheep, that's one benefit. It's a sort of, against nosebleeds, a sort of device against that. Domestic iron and religious torch.
No problem here. No problem.
Well, there's three very interesting explanations. Of course, a lot of nonsense, most of them. Anyway, bonfire, portable bonfire, and leaping papists. That conjures up all sorts of ideas of the truth. And as you say, it was rather symbolic. So all these point to you having a sort of a true definition of this. But the damned souls in purgatory rather sort of counteracts the whole business. So we move on from that and move to Alexandra. Now, an early iron. Now, I don't know whether they actually bought. They must. How early was it? Did it?
1840.
1840. Oh, well, that's not so early, is it? Oh, that puts a different complex on the whole thing. Anyway, to tinley your shirt, I thought was something else entirely, but obviously it wasn't. Anyway, insoflator, Dr. Finley's casebook, very interesting. It was the Dr. Finley's casebook you were talking about, right?
Dr. Tinley.
Oh, Dr. Tinley. Nosebleeds, fills the nostrils, clot. Yeah. I like that. I think that was very apt. As I said earlier.
Nasal shoveler.
I would like to choose that one.
Yes, you're
the clot stopper.
A deeply serious person, and
very unwise.
Yes, I've got it out already. Nothing. Who gave the true definition? There somewhere.
Was your leaping papist?
Ah. Nice sort of torch celebrating the release of chaps from wherever it was. And now we have, I suppose we have Itsy Boo, do we? I don't know. Gemma, what do you think?
Itsy Boo.
Ah.
It's a large-maned wild dog, and it comes from northern Manchuria, and it's frequently to be found portrayed on the pottery of the Yongle dynasty. It's brown in colour, and it has a thick erectile ruff, and it's said to be the ancestor of the Chow Chow dog.
The boogie?
It's Zebu.
Chow Chow boogie, wasn't it?
Stop it. Must have been that, I think.
When I was a lad.
It's now your turn if you want to go on.
Chow Chow boogie with a...
What's your definition, quickly?
It's Zebu. It's a... Round about 1871, the Japanese were handing round at great speed a silver coin called an Itsy-bo. It's like a flat metal plate of silver with the corners rounded. Rather like those old licorice linseed and chlorodyne tablets. You know, they were rectangular with the ends off. Worth about, what? Victorian equivalent of 1 4d. Very popular, now very rarely found. except in Japan. And then not often.
And never in the south. Graham?
Well, Itsy Boo is a bit of stomach-turning nursery talk on a par with Tootsies, Bow Wow, Tummy Ache, Diddums, Itchkitchkoo, and did Diddums lose the last game then, sort of thing. At the Oxford Dictionary, managing with difficulty from keeping its gourds from rising, describes it as, to quote, a compound adjective meaning both little and beautiful. And I know the feeling.
So, it's kind of baby talk. It's a Japanese coin and a sort of, I think it was a West Manchurian dog, I'm not too sure. A Manchurian dog, how's that anyway? Yes. Alexandra Bastedo, your choice.
I don't think it is the child's relative. The Itzibu, I've never heard of it registered at Crufts or anything like that. So...
A long way, Manchurian. Got to be sure of winning.
Right. So I don't think it's that.
Exactly.
It might be a Japanese silver coin, but I'm not plumping for that one. Along with Kuchiku and all the rest of it, I think that perhaps Itzibu might be included.
So what are you choosing? Which one are you choosing?
Itzibu, Graham.
Yeah, that's the word. Oh, Graham, it's a true on bluff, my dear fellow.
Voila.
It sounded absolutely like that, I do agree, but it can't have been. So who gave the true definition of the word? Itzy-boo. Own up.
Sully. Oh, no!
It really is a Japanese coin. Hardly believe it. 3-2, nothing in it. And here we have Tanakin, Alexandra.
Tanakin is the name of a German or Dutch girl. That is to say, a young woman of German or Dutch nationality. It isn't exactly what you might call a trendy or with-it nickname. In fact, it was last used about 1600. So if you were to call your Dutch or German au pair girl a Tanakin, she might not exactly take terribly kindly to it.
Yeah, it doesn't sound too offensive, though, really, does it? No, Patrick, what do you say?
A Tanakin is a company or troop of cavalry, and they ride by night, a kind of demon night riders. Oh. They mostly operated in the medieval legends of France.
Oh, good.
In 1626, want to make a note? 1626, a Tanakin is alleged to have galloped right through the bedroom of the Duc de Bordelais, depriving him of the few senses that he had left.
Robin Nedwell.
But a Tanakin, you see, is a very small black seed that comes from a very kind of wiry, straggly plant that you find in the jungles of kind of Brazil or New Guinea or wherever jungles might be. But it's what they do with it. It's important. You see, they crush it. Oh. And from this, you get a very, very strong-smelling, thick black oil. Now, this thick black oil, along with very few other things, such as kind of ambergris and what have you, form what they call stabilizers in the production of perfumes and scents. And that's what Tanakin is.
So it's a bunch of demon horsemen. It's a Dutch or, I think you said a Dutch or German. Yeah, that's right, girl. And it's a seed which, if you crush it, you get this oil out of. Gemma Jones.
Well, I think you seem to know rather a lot about this seed. It sounds almost too complicated and plausible.
It grows all over the world.
I'm not too keen on that seed. I also feel that the Duc de Bordelais seems to have been almost too well documented. If you actually knew what was going on in his bedroom in 1626, that sounds a bit implausible. I think the useless information that Alexandra imparted about a German-Dutch girl's nickname,
You're choosing...
I go for that.
Her definition.
Yes.
Then she must own up instantly. It's there. It's there. Oh, you keep it. And there! We've just got nice time for a quick one, you see. It's 3-3 now. Oh, this is what we like, isn't it? Knopper or Nopper. Frank, swiftly, if you please.
Believe it or not, it's the name that used to be given to the licence the livery company had to have from the Lord Mayor.
Right. Graham Hill.
An opera is an oak gall. What on earth? Anyway, it's an excrescence on an oak tree produced by gallflies.
Don't say any more, my dear fellow. You might run out of time, and you might spoil it also.
I've got something good to say.
Yeah, say it up. Gemma Joan.
A canopper is an American word which means to open and scrutinise letters and telegrams, and it's named after Wilbraham Canopper, who was a nosy Parker.
A noted opener of telegrams and the like. So it's sort of prying into that sort of thing. It's that sort of licence that Frank prescribed, and it's an oak gall, or excrescence, I think you said, Graham. Jolly good word, that is. Patrick.
Oh, dear mummy. I've got a moment to think. It couldn't be a knob. Nobody called Knopper. Is it excrescence on an oak tree? Oh, Lord.
Not much
It's an excrescence on an oak tree.
Well, that was Graham Hill, and he pronounced that big word so well. Excrescence, true or bluff? You're right! You paused to good effect there, Patrick. So the score standing at 4-3, just by a no. Well, that's not quite fair, a nose, no. But by a whisker, Patrick Campbell's team has won. So, next week we shall have more burnt-out cases from the Oxford English Dictionary. Till then, goodbye from Graham Hill, Robin Nedwell, Gemma Jones, Alexandra Bastedo, Frank Muir, Patrick Campbell,
Good night.
and goodbye. Hello, this is Call My Bluff, the game without an ounce of vice, featuring Patrick Campbell.
Good evening. If I am now free to begin, my first guest is absolutely bilingual in French and Italian and Spanish and English. I mean, yes. And she makes a lot of movies in Spain, and she's indescribably beautiful. Like I said last week, she's called Alexandra Bastedo. And the other one is that well-known, come along, thermometer pusher, Dr. Waring, otherwise known as Robin Nedwell.
And the electric hair himself, Frank Muir.
I'm happy to have my gallant little team back again this week with, first of all, actress, cool and super Gemma Jones. And ace racing motor carist, Graham Hill.
Let's have a word, why not? As you know, Buzzknack is going to be defined 3 different ways by Patrick Campbell and his team. 2 of those definitions are cod definitions. One is true. That's the one that Frank Muir and co. try to find out. So what about this word, Patrick?
A buzzknack is a pickpocket helper or accomplice or assistant. Now, the buzzknack's job is to distract the attention of the pickpocketee by bumping into him or trampling on his foot or shouting abuse at him, so that the pickpocket can more easily pick the pickpocketee's pocket.
Well,
Said it.
That slots into place. Robin Nedwell, your turn.
Well, in fact, a buzzknack is really a naval verb. You see, it means, as regards a ship, if it is buzzknacking, it is cruising about in a kind of aimless fashion or tacking back and forth across the sea in an aimless, kind of generally loitering amid-ocean. You see, something like Lord Jellicoe back in the good old days. In a review, for instance, if a ship was buzzknacking, he might have said, "Signalman, make to HMS Indefatigable, stop buzzknacking about and get back into proper station."
Now it's Alexandra Bastedo's turn.
Buzzknack, in the vernacular of a New Englander from America, is a picnic. That is to say, an outdoor occasion where refreshments are partaken of. It is particularly a picnic that takes place in the autumn or fall, when the New Englander is bound to be pestered by mosquitoes and flies.
So there you are. It's a sort of a picnic. It's a pickpocket's mate or chum, friend, and it's to sort of cruise about and wave about if you're in a boat. Frank Muir.
It's one of those. We all think differently. We agreed then on that, we all think differently. To buzzknack, pickpocket's assistants, they're all very good, actually.
Thank you.
You didn't do them very well.
Thanks
they're very good definitions.
Thank you. Next,
and pickpocket's assistant, I think I might have heard the word. I just got a funny feeling. No. Buzzknack picnic is also very plausible. I'm going to try for this, as I don't know any naval words at all, apart from sharp end things, aimless cruising.
That was Robin Nedwell,
it a bit,
true or bluff. Here he goes.
We rushed at it.
Bullseye. Buzzknack means wandering about in the water. That's what it means. He was quite right when he said that. And then you get another word, I don't know, anglet witch or angle twitch. Frank.
Well, now, there you are, you see, 1918 or 1919, say, roundabout, give or take a Thursday. And you're fervently pro-Bolshevik. So you form yourself into a society called the Anglo-Tovarich Society. Tovarich is Russian for comrade, you see. And you're rather sort of very left-wing and rather intellectual, and you're rather mocked. So you're called angle witches.
Yes, who knows?
We didn't laugh at all, Paddy.
Oh, I did.
It's a very serious matter, people mocking at angle witches, whatever.
Yes, I suppose it is.
I laughed for him. Graham.
Well, an angle twitch is an earthworm, as opposed to a moonworm, and which is just as well. And it's the only it's one of the comparatively few things on this earth which not only has angles but twitches as well. Now think that one out. Anyway, it is of course a dialect word, especially and particularly applied to an earthworm that's used by an angler. Get the connection, angler, angle twitch, you see, it's all there. Used by an angler for baiting his hook, hence the term, go bait your hook.
Paul. Gemma, your turn.
Angle twitch was old vernacular for the fit of shaking or shivering that characterised what was known as the cold stage of an ague. And Bishop Cleeve exclaimed in his Memoria Epistolari, quote, All the earthly delights are but the makings of one good day between two angle twitches.
Did he?
No wonder he had to write it down. You had to read it there. I get it absolutely right. I don't blame you. It's a sort of like the shakes, as she says. It's an earthworm, like he said, and it's kind of fairly early Bolshevik. Patrick.
Even if Graham has a true, I can't follow what he's talking about. You see, you've got it all there, Ace, but I can't understand a single word. It's something to do with earthworms and
Don't reply.
little touch of angling in there somewhere.
In the night.
But angle, only white Russian, right, by 19 only to be mocked is insufficient for them. No, damn it, I think it's a kind of earthworm. I don't believe Gemma or the Bishop Cleves.
That's the way to do it.
Wait a minute.
Have you plumped?
I plumped for the Bishop of Cleves, whatever it is.
The bishop saying about the shakes, that was Gemma, wasn't it? True or bluff?
It's fantastic, isn't it?
No. No bishop, no king. Who gave the true definition? What put you off? What made you change suddenly? You were going to have the right one, it seemed.
I couldn't understand. I couldn't define what he said, you see, after he said it. Helpless.
Come on, Paddy, make it.
Remember another time. Well, there you are. Oh, I should repeat that angle twitch does indeed mean the earthworm that he spoke about. Trommel is the next one. Robin Nedwell.
Well, trommel is it's kind of German knees up. See, German students have a trommel at the end of their university year. So they'll get in the beer kellers and they kind of eat sausages and cut each other across the cheek with schlagers, and to celebrate the end of the kind of university year. So that, in fact, is what a trommel is, quite simply.
Right, now it's Alexandra Bastedo's turn, she tells us.
A trommel is the truest form of artistic license that there is. In fact, it's an error which is intentionally painted into a painting by an artist. In fact, I'd say that the most famous trommel of all is in Velázquez's painting of Philip II of Spain, which shows King Philip, rather, not
Well, he was a
King
prince before,
Philip,
yeah.
as having a totally unblemished right cheek, when in fact, in reality, he had a strawberry mark, a birthmark.
Right. It's Patrick's go.
A trommel is a drum used by gold miners, not to go rump-to-rump-bum on it.
That wasn't fair.
But to use it for sieving the gold out of sand and other muck. They've got a large cylinder about that circumference, and a handle on each end, and holes pierced in the cylinder, and I turn the handle at this end, and all the sand pours out, and even the gold behind it, except they hardly ever find any for the trommelers.
Well, pretty technical, pretty technical. It's a gold miner's drum for that purpose. It's a German amusement or dance, that kind of thing. And it's a deliberate error introduced by an artist into a picture he paints. Graham Hill.
Well, a great variety and most interesting. Knees up in a German cellar is for a trommel. I think it's quite likely, especially amongst German students, with all that sauerkraut and sausages and things. And then we got your actual artistic license. Well, there's enough of that round here this evening, I think, for us to... and a few errors mucked in, and Prince Philip, that was in it. Raspberry cheek, I've got here. That can't be right. Anyway, that must be an error, so that must be artistic license, so it's quite likely. Then we get... because I've seen the chap. Anyway, we got your actual drum here, where you go oompa, oompa, oompa on it. Was that right?
No.
Oh, right. Well, then that's not it. And you didn't get much gold anyway, so the pay must be bad, so we won't choose that either. I personally think it's your actual knees up.
Oh, you do? I think that's the best account of what you choose in Chinese I've heard on this programme. So it's the knee... who said that? Oh, yes, I know. Yes, Robin, true or bluff?
Frolicking Germans it was.
No, wasn't that. Who gave the true definition, I wonder? Yes. The silent drum of the gold miner is what a trommel is. Burlace, burlacci, I don't know. I wonder how you'll say it, Graham Hill.
Well, it's your actual burlace, isn't it? And your burlace is your actual seven-spotted ladybird. That little beetle-like instinct that wears a red polka-dotted overcoat and flies around in ever-decreasing circles until it disappears up its own overcoat. But the burlace, the burlace is much rarer than the common or garden nine-spotted ladybird, and they're hardly ladies at all. And for that reason, it is traditionally cherished for luck, rather like the four-leaf clover, which flies around in ever-decreasing circles. He's got the common touch. Gemma Joan, your turn.
A burlace is a now obsolete grape. It is, or it was, a fairly large green grape. It was barely indistinguishable from a greengage, and it was grown in French and English vineyards up to the end of the 17th century, but now it's very rarely seen, and even more rarely heard of.
Well, heard, really?
Well, I suppose if it was barely indistinguishable, it would be, but that's a marvellous usage. Frank, your turn.
It's burlace is really sort of lumps of air surrounded by string. A burlace is also known as a flam net, or it's also known as a purse net, and it's also known as a clap net. What you do, see, if you want a rabbit, is you get a burlace and you hold it. They were quite large things. You hold it, or several actually, if it's a big one, and you cover. It's terribly exciting in the end, Paddy. You cover all the holes but one, and down that you stick a ferret.
Which goes round and round.
You catch all the rabbits.
Should you have one about you? Well, there you are. It's the sort of ladybird that Graham Hill managed to bring himself to talk about. It's a net for catching rabbits plus a ferret, and it's a kind of obsolete grape. Robin Nedwell.
Cool, going round and round and disappearing. Graham's seven-spotted disappearing ladybird. I was convinced. I thought all of that was deliberate red herring stuff here. But then when he said nine-spotted, now I think ladybirds have only got 7 or 5. So I tend to think that's possibly wrong on that one. So it was tossed up between the greengage masquerading as a grape and the Perth flam clap ferret down the hole. We had no idea, actually, but on pure instinct, let's go for the greengage masquerading as a grape.
That's the odd sort of grape. Now, Gemma, you said that, true or bluff?
I'm looking pretty happy.
You've got a...
Oh, it's a one of
Kind of old-fashioned grape, out of use now, don't see them often. Well, there you are. It's 2 all now, and you have Kirkerdale. That's the way I say it, and that's the way I'm going to stick saying it. Alexandra, your turn.
Well, if any of you are classical scholars, you won't need me to remind you that querquedule, being interpreted from the Latin, means a species of duck. Hence, in English, querquedule means the pintail duck, or, if you would prefer, the multicoloured quacker with the needle-like tail.
All same to me.
Yeah. As long as it's edible. Patrick.
Kerkedule, that's pronounced approximately in the French language, is a kind of inferior cochineal. It's cochineal made out of cochineal insects that haven't really made it in life. They're inferior cochineal insects, or small cochineal insects, or crippled cochineal insects. Consequently, they are not used for colouring junket. It's cochineal, what's come to the crippled insects. But they're made for printing either cotton or calico. And it comes from, of all places, Madagascar.
Spun that out a bit, didn't you? It was good. Robin.
Well, a kirkadool, you see, is a person, a kind of quarrelsome person. A person that likes picking arguments, but not particularly the physical arguments, but verbal arguments, you see. Enjoys arguing verbally. It was an old word, and for instance, one William Tyndale, who no doubt will leap to mind as one of the famous translators of King James's Bible, is well remembered in some circles of translators for a famous quote which he left, which said, "'Twere better to keep company with a coward than a," forgetting the name, kirkadool.
Yes, well, it's a kind of inferior cochineal. It's a duck, and it's an argumentative person. Gemma Jones.
Well, now, I think maybe we're being led up the garden path by Alexandra's definition of a crackadoole, cracking duck. That's... No, I don't go for the crackadoole. I'm confused by the cochineal, because I know about the cochineal that goes into junket, but I've never heard of the cochineal that's a crippled ant. And Robin's definition, the quote doesn't sound altogether plausible to me. But I think I like the idea of the crippled ant. I'll go for the colouring cochineal and the crippled ant.
Oh, that was Patrick's long definition, wasn't it? True or bluff?
We've got some very pale junk.
Nothing to do with that. It went on far too long for it to be true. Who gave the true definition, howsoever? There. Sort of a double bluff, because quackadoole does mean, that kind of duck that Alexandra spoke of. Merlimuse, nice word. Gemma.
Merlimuse is what some crabby critics might think we're actually engaging in on this game, because Merlimuse actually means, it's an old slang term for foolish antics, childish pranks, infantile gestures, and catchpenny fiddle-faddle.
Good heavens. You sound like a television critic. You want to stop that sort of thing. Frank. Oh, good.
La da 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 da, da 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 in Torquay. Lovely. The sun has just gone down. Dusk settling. Soft onshore breeze comes across from the sea to the land. And your West Countrymen will say, oh, that be Merlimuse. Yes, he would, he would. Yes, he would. Please believe me. It sounds lovely. Merlimuse. No? No.
A laugh, a song, all you lack is the piano. What we now have is Graham Hill.
Merlimuse, Merlimuse, Merlimuse. It's a Scottish summons to a cat. It's a Scots word that is apparently muttered, spoken or shouted at a cat when a Scotsman wishes it to approach.
Not being a Scotsman. Give it a try, Graham. Come on.
Merlimuse, Merlimuse.
Absolutely convincing.
Well, it's not approaching. Anyway, not being a Scotsman and not having a Scottish cat handy, I'm unable to vouchsafe for the efficacy of this invocation.
That was almost quite right. It's what he says is it's a Scots summons to a cat. It's a very nice sort of breeze and childish pranks and games and that sort of thing. Alexandra.
I think we've just seen some very good performances.
Do you?
Yes, but I give 10 full marks to Frank. I mean, I thought that was superb.
Thank you, dear.
Really was. So I'd like to bet on that, please.
You mean without any way and trouble? No. And you said it was that. Well, you sang it, didn't you? You sang it was a breeze, a little breeze.
Can we see your little ticket?
Produce it, I'm afraid.
Oh, it's not that.
So, not that. Who gave the true definition? Here it comes. 1, 2, 3. Childish game off track. And this being the last game in the series, it's nice, it's 3-3. We've just got very quick time to do Zerf. Patrick, instantly.
Zerf is kind of Aramaic choir boy who carries in the Talatha, or the Holy Scrolls of the Aramaic Church.
Splendid. Robin.
Well, in fact, it's a bit of Somerset dialect. Zerf. Zerf means dew. Zerf zoons means early, you know, crack of the whistle. But carry on.
What does it mean?
Somerset dialogue meaning dew.
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 Dew, yes. Alexandra.
Zurf is a holder for putting in cups of coffee, which you pass around at Levantine parties. And it has a beautifully carved handle.
Don't say any more, my dear.
Okay.
I have to interrupt. It was lovely. But we don't have to... It's a cup holder, beautifully carved. Aramaic choir boy I have down here. Somerset for dew. Frank.
Too excited, I can't say. Dew, Robin's dew.
The dew.
Yes.
Robin, true or bluff? Let's have the true definition. We must have the true one. We must... There! There you are. Barely by a whisker, we come to the end, and the end of the series, the end of the show. 4-3. Patrick Campbell's team has won. I think you'd find it evened out over the games, wouldn't it? Don't look like that, Frank. No, he didn't win, did he? But anyway, as I say, we come to the end of the programme. We come to the end of a series which has been well called the Thinking Man's Ludo. And until the next season, therefore, we put the dust sheets over the Oxford English Dictionary, and everyone says goodbye, beginning with, if I can remember, Robin Nedwell. Graham Hill. Alexandra Bastedo. Gemma Jones, Patrick Campbell, Frank Muir. Good night. And goodbye. Good evening. It's a great pleasure to welcome you all to a new series of Call My Bluff, the game where, to play fair, you have to cheat. And this, of course, comes naturally to Frank Muir.
My first guests are married, and they're both on the programme for the first time. And my first guest on my right is as attractive and as accomplished an actress as you'll see in a month of Sundays, in comedy and in straight on both sides of the channel, Pauline Yates. I've known her old man for donkey's years. I knew him as an actor, he's then given that up and gone straight, and now writes what to my mind are the funniest plays on television, Donald Churchill.
Well, of course, he doesn't use his title, which rather spoils the pun, but he's still the longest peer in the British Isles. Patrick Campbell.
Good evening, thank you. And my first guest told me her last public appearance, she had a broken leg in a public hospital, in a general hospital. I commiserating with her, she said, "You fool, I was acting the part in a series called General Hospital. It could only be lovely Joanna Lumley." Another lord, the place is alive with lords, lousy with lords. Until very recently, he was a kind of textile tycoon, but he redundant himself from that. And he's now doing a thing I can't quite understand, so I'll just say it's Lord Kearton.
Well, that's how it always usually begins. But there, let's ring the... It rings still, it rings yet. And we get the first word, and it's a very good one, called Emberlucock. But, of course, they pronounce it every which way. Now, as I seem to recall, Frank Muir is going to define Emberlucock 3 different ways. 2 of them, I think, are going to be false ones. One's going to be true. That's the one that Patrick and Co. are going to try and put their finger on, or fingers. Frank, what about the word?
Emberlucock, verb. To Emberlucock. Bewitched, bothered, Emberlucock. Hammer. It means to Emberlucock, to baffle, to bewilder, to obfuscate, to befog. You might say, really, that call my bluff. The object is for one team to Emberlucock the other team. And you could say that the whole game is an exercise in etymological imbukockery.
You got to
All you did was...
pronounced it wrong.
Just lost the L at the middle there, but it...
Oh, the loo. It was a family programme, so I left the loo out.
Splendid.
Etymological emberlucockery.
Thank you.
It was well worth hearing twice. Well, Donald Churchill, your go.
Emberlucock, it's a layman's term for this, what the churchmen call the Holy Cross Day. It's on September the 14th, and on that day you don't do anything. You just pray, and you don't eat, and you don't drink. It's one of 2 days in the year when they ordain deacons.
That's handy to know.
Well, of course, it doesn't do to overdo it. Now, it's Pauline, it's your turn, isn't it?
Well, you might be surprised to hear that an emberlucock, the best friend of an emberlucock, would in fact be an emberloo hen. Because it's a South American, a short-legged South American guinea fowl, and it's edible. Oh, that's an emberloo. An emberloo is a short-legged South American guinea fowl.
What? Oh, yes, she covered the ground there pretty perfectly. It's a day of prayer, one of the 2 days in which they ordain deacons. It's a guinea fowl, and it's to baffle or confuse or thereabouts. Patrick.
If you just told us, Frank, that it just meant to baffle, there was no need for anything more than that, was there? I mean, all that meandering round it, even pronouncing it wrong. Silly ass. All guinea fowls are short-legged.
Oh, are they? I know that.
It's a well-known fact, particularly those from South America.
Really? Learn something every day.
I don't believe the deacons ever get ordained. They just get to be deacons and take their money and run. I believe it's all this baffling business, but wait. I think it's this baffling business.
Yes, you were wobbling there. That was Frank, wasn't it, who said that, to baffle? True or bluff, Frank?
Looking far too
Give you
happy.
one more chance. Change your mind.
So there you are. After a flying start there, Patrick, emberlucock means, whatever he said it means, to baffle, that's it. To baffle. Baffle or obfuscate. Obfuscate's not a bad word either. Here we have poussa, and it's Patrick's turn to define it.
A poussé is better known as the Tunisian citron, or citron en français. It's a... Who's doing this? You are.
You're winning, so you go.
Begin again. It's an acidulous tree fruit with a thicker... Come along. Skin or rind. Lemon. If you take a poussé, with fruit off it, and squeeze it like mad, you get a kind of acidulous thing which is used in the making of perfume.
Something rather lovely about that. I think it's your turn now, Lord Kearton, yes.
Well, I was brought up to think of a pussy as a sort of episcopal thimblestork.
A what?
Fingerstork.
Oh, yes.
Fingerstork. It's a piece of gold or silver which a bishop slips onto his thumb after his thumb's been in the consecrated oil. Now, I'm afraid I can't tell you exactly why he does this. To get the correct background, you'd have to go to the Archbishop of Canterbury, well known to all of you, or alternatively, if he's engaged to his press office. But you could get the derivation and the symbolism of it from there. But the fact it's just a bit of gold stuff he puts onto his thumb, I do know.
Great. And now it's Joanna. It's your go, yes.
A poussée is used in the manufacture of felt hats. You take your hat, you don't have a head in it at this stage, it's just a hat, and you hold it up against a cylinder of whizzing abrasive stuff like sandpaper, which is coated around it. And you hold the hat against it, so the felt is all brushed in a uniform, well, not in a uniform, it's in a uniform texture. You know, you don't have hats in uniform.
Uniform.
Perhaps
we have uniformed hats, but anyway, the thing is, it just brushes it into a flat mat.
Perhaps the chaps who do the brushing wear the uniform. No. Well, it's probably not germane, but here are the definitions. It's a sort of hat grinding thing, and it's the oil with which the bishop anoints his thumb so he can get the thimble or the ring on.
It's the thumb he puts on.
It's the thing he puts on. It's the thimble or thumble, yes, of a bishop. And it's a, I think I gathered, Patrick, it was a sort of a lemon. Frank?
Oh, yes. Now comes the nasty bit of the programme, isn't it? Guessing. You lemons, I mean, if the line's much thicker, you don't get anything out at all when you squeeze lemons.
It's Tunisian citron, you do?
No, you don't. It would be called a Tunisian citron, not a poussée, not a fleer. And anyway, nowadays you have stuff with lemon smell. So you don't need a poussée.
I don't have any stuff with lemon smell at all. It is.
I hope you don't smell
Your
it.
domestic worry.
Whether it's... I'm sure if you held a felt hat against whirling, abrasive surfaces, you'd end up with a very sore hand and no felt hat, because it would whip all the felt away. So therefore, it must be the... I'm not sure whether it's the bishop, the oil, or the thimble. But we'll check up with the press officer tomorrow.
Well, I think what Frank Kearton said, well, I think it was the actual thimble. Anyway, now, moment of truth. Sure, Bluff. Here
Let's
it goes.
flash it.
You've got it there. Bullseye! Yep, it's a bishop's thimble is a poussa or poussée or whatever. Now, ting-a-ling. Get another word, flink. And Donald, I think it's your turn.
Well, now, flink is an old American verb to mean, and it means to act in a craven manner. It's an old American verb, and today what the Americans, let's say, to chicken out. You know, an old-fashioned American, you know, you might say, I reckon you's a flinking yellow belly. Now, an Englishman might say, well, you'll fight for Cardiff custom. That's
I don't know why you ever gave up acting.
You're getting better.
It's the first dialect imitation of the series, and I welcome it. Now, Pauline, it's your turn.
Yes, well, flink is the unusable waste that's left over, the chippings from a slate quarry. In fact, to be really helpful, maybe I could tell you that if you came from Derbyshire, you might be confused by you might be confused by it if you came from Derbyshire, because in Derbyshire it's called scutter, but we know it as flink, unusable waste.
Yes, well, some of us probably do, you know. We take a straw poll among the audience, see if they do. We never know. Frank?
You've seen one of these. You've actually seen... You probably haven't noticed it, but you have in fact seen it, particularly in a boarding house, if you want to see what the weather's like. Because imagine a barometer Not an adenoid barometer, where you can't see the works, but a mercury barometer.
An adenoid?
Yes. I think he meant that as a joke. Am I right, Frank?
No.
Aneroid.
Not one which works on the contraction or expansion of a scientist's adenoids, but one which works through mercury in a tube. Now, sitting on top of the mercury has to be something which is going to lower and raise and therefore turn the handle. You have to tap it to loosen that so it doesn't stick to the side of the tube. And that is a tiny little circle of ivory, believe this, if you will, called a flint.
Yes, well, so one says that it's to be cowardly, an old American term for to be cowardly. Another says it's useless bits of slate, least of all in Derbyshire, and that it's part of an adenoid barometer. I swear you meant that as a joke. Oh, not an adenoid, nor yet an aneroid, but a mercury barometer. Well, Frank Kearton, your turn.
Well, I must say I admired Donald Churchill's acting. As you say, it was the best we've had tonight. And I thought his definition was extremely convincing, and I would say it's almost probably right, but it's almost too convincing, so I'll pass him by. When it comes to Pauline, I thought the business of the slate detritus was extremely probable too. In fact, the more I think about it, the more it seems likely to me that is the answer. But on the other hand, there was a sort of Freudian atmosphere about Frank Muir when he was giving his adenoids and all the rest of it, and I got an uneasy feeling that, in fact, it is the little thingamajig at the top of the mercury which makes the thing go ooh and tells us whether it's going to be fair or foul or just as it is now. Beautiful weather.
Well, yes, it's Frank, isn't it, who said all that? Or, yes, true or bluff?
I find this rather worrying, actually. If you are going to believe that load of rubbish...
It's nothing to do with an aneroid barometer. No, a mercury barometer. Who gave the true definition? Here it comes. Oh, yes. There. It means to be cowardly in Old American, Old High American. And the next word is flier, but we'll have umpteen different pronunciations, I swear. And Lord Kearton, you kick off.
Well, flier is given away, as it were, by the actual pronunciation. Flier means flea-ridden or infested with fleas. If you go to the wrong sort of boarding house, you may in fact find sheets or the bed linen with flier. Or you could have a dog which is flier, and in certain company you could even have human beings with flier. But look at us. That's what it means. It really means flea-ridden.
Right. And now it's Joanna's turn.
Flay. Flay is a verbule here on the hunting field. Of a hound, it means to quiver, of the tail or the body, just to quiver in general. And normally, you'll find that a hind is sort of fleeing when it knows there's a fox around, but it's not exactly sure where. So it just quivers because it can sort of smell it.
I think we ought to have, at the end of these series, an anthology of all these dialects. They're jolly good. I give you alpha double minus for it, I think.
Do an LP.
Yes. Patrick now tells us.
A flay, of course, is pronounced a play. It's an impromptu or impulsive step in ballroom dancing. When I take the ballroom floor, last event 1932, late August, I warned my partner to keep a sharp eye out for my flay, particularly while passing the bandstand. That's what it is. Impulsive, impromptu, and often involuntary as well.
Yes, well, who knows? It either means, or not either, but it means full of flies, it means a twitching hound, or an impromptu figure in the ballroom dance. Donald.
You said full of flies. Was it fleas before?
Fleas, that's right, I said fleas.
Fleas, not
Did
flies.
I say full of
You
flies?
said flies.
Oh,
didn't you?
it's
all right.
Yes.
It's fleas.
Fleas.
Yes, well, I don't think it's that. Anyway, flies or fleas, anyway. It's too much like fleas, isn't it? Flea and flies. It's all... And, you know, I've been in a lot of digs with fleas in my time, and I've never heard of flea, ever. You know, never heard landladies say, look at that, we've got all those fleas here. No, it's not that. No, I don't think it's that. So the one about... the ballroom dancing, you know, I didn't think that was quite right because it's too much like that word plie, which is in dancing. It seems to be got from, which is a thing, isn't it? What's a plie? You do
get up and do it.
I don't do that. I don't.
Get up and do it again.
Dismantle everything here. Everything I touch, you know, I drop.
Yes,
it's not
where
plie.
were-
It's not
yes.
plie anyway. It's not plie. I think it's this dog that gets excited and quivers and got the smell.
Ah, no,
I
it was...
I like that.
That was Joanna.
Joanna's.
Joanna
I
who
like
said-
Joanna's one best of all. I think it's that.
Well, if you... Yeah, right. Now it's her turn to show it up. True or bluff? 1, 2, 3, here you go. Up.
Lovely little psychic.
No, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. I wonder which was the true one.
Yes, there we are.
It's there somewhere. Yes! Full of fleas. I should have said full of fleas, not full of fly, but you caught me on it. So you can't say you were deceived about it. I mean, you knew that I'd said it wrong, but it does mean... Flie means flea-y, full of, you know, fleas. There. So, 2-2, needle match, Musmon, or Musmon, Pauline Yates.
Yes. In honour of the new series, a Musman is yet another Turkish official.
Don't believe it.
He's the aide-de-camp to a pasha. And in fact, this particular official has considerable perks. As Byron mentioned in The Brides of Abydos, more ill-got wealth, a meaner soul, holds not a musman's base control.
He never.
Now, Frank, I think it's your go.
It's animal. Animal. I don't know how well you know your Pliny's natural history. You do? Amply. Ah, yes, well then you'll know it, because it's in there. It's funny animal, strange animal really. I haven't seen one, but I should have done, because they hop around in Corsica, and almost nowhere else, or did. Montecinto, you might find one standing on one leg, looking down the valley. Horned beast, cloven hooves, surprising coat, sort of fleecy. The result of a misunion between a ram and a nanny goat. Musman.
Right. Now it's Donald Churchill to tell us.
Now, the Musman is a very crude kind of parliamentary mace of the Isle of Man. On the Isle of Man. And it was to show the sovereignty of the Welsh kings who ruled the Isle of Man up until AD 969. But it's got lost. It's all past history, of course, because it's supposed to have got lost in the wash by King John. The Musman. Parliamentary, crude mace.
Well, there you are. It's a mace of a certain sort. It's kind of a goat, and it's the obligatory Turkish official without which no game before my bluff is complete, and of which you will remember that when it is not a bluff, it is true. So, Joanna, I leave it to you.
Well, I listened with some interest to Frank until he said you can see it standing on one leg. It's got to have 4 legs, and, you know, standing on one leg.
Very difficult to stand on one.
I thought that was silly.
So did I.
Stand on one leg.
So
I'm going to do that now.
Yet he's got 2.
So I dismissed that peremptorily. Donald, a crude mace from the Isle of Man. A Musman. I I don't know what this reminds me of, but it's not a crude mace. It reminds me more of Pauline's Turkish, the mandatory Turkish official.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like Pauline's.
You choose. Yet again, someone
Yes,
chooses
again.
the Turkish official. In this case, it was spoken of by Pauline Yates. Have they done well or ill to or bluff, Pauline? Tell us.
Yes, I think it's Tom. Yes,
Let me remind you, it never is true, except the odd occasion when it is. Now, who's going to give the true definition? Must be
me.
there.
It's
No,
not
it-
that. 3.
Me.
That was awfully lifelike, Frank. So it means a sort of horned creature.
I think it's a Latin name for a mouflon, which is what it's known as in Corsica.
Now you're
Mouflon.
showing off. Just,
Well,
yeah.
on one leg.
Yes. I think I'll ring the bell now. And we get another word. Aha. Parasite. And it's Joanna's go.
A parasite, no, not a parasite. What am I saying? The other spelling. Parasite is a mineral found in the emerald mines of Colombia, which is in South America. And it's found in the form of brownish, yellowish crystals. And you can jot this down. I can see Frank's jotting it down already. Chemical analysis reveals that it is a fluocarbonate of the metal cerium. That's all.
And floor them. That's it. Patrick?
A parasite is what you call a man who believes that the city of Paris is the center and core and heart of the whole universe. They're nearly always English or American that hold this belief. And the word parasite was made up round about the time that Papa Hemingway and all that lot were lurching around the Rue de Bac and all that lot. But it wasn't made up by Papa Hemingway. It was made up by an English journalist called Herbert Wright.
The famous Mr. Wright. Well, well. Now I think it's your turn, Frank Kearton, yes.
Yes, well, a parasite, if Patrick will forgive me saying so.
Exactly,
Yes, yes.
absolutely.
It's a grammatical adjective which is used to describe phrases or sentences of ambiguous meaning. In other words, you can take the sentence to mean one thing, or alternatively, you can take it to mean another. And clearly, this is an essential part of the equipment of any successful politician and any successful panelist in this game, or even, if I may say so, any successful businessman. It is a word of extremely wide applicability. Parasite.
Right. It's a lover of Paris. It's a kind of mineral, and it's a species of ambiguity. Pauline.
Yes, we all think so.
Brownish mineral. Brownish mineral. It sounds good, doesn't it, really? All sounds convincing. And then there's Herbert Wright. Herbert Wright's Parasite. Trying to read something. Sorry to take so long. And yes, and then there was the ambiguous one. Yes. So maybe I won't have that. If anything's in doubt, I'm certainly in doubt. I think I'll plump for the Herbert Wright.
Herbert Wright,
Well,
who spoke of the mineral. And also, we've had the first plump of the series. That's another landmark. Sorry about that. True or bluff was it, Patrick?
Right. A misdirected plumping there.
Well, you didn't plump quite right there. We need to know now who gave the true definition of that word.
Me.
Well done. It was the old brown mineral. And I'll ring our bell again and see what happens. And we get P-Oi. And it's Frank Muir's turn.
For the 9th time already in this first programme of the series, eastern plant, tuberous, exudes a fluid, smells of ginger, fluid very useful as a sedative in convulsions, hysteria, any form of over-enthusiasm. quite well done. Boring, but quite well done.
Yes. Right. Now, Donald Churchill, your turn.
A POI is a simple do-it-yourself firework. What you do is you get some gunpowder and you mix it with water and you make it into a cone like that, and on the top you put some blue paper like that, and then you light it and retire very quickly.
Like
it's
that?
going to blow up. That's POI.
Can we watch Donald retiring quickly?
No, I trust he'll stay to the end. I'm relying on him. Now, Pauline, your turn.
Yes, a POI is a Tibetan foot messenger. In Tibet, where telecommunications are sort of on a par with ours, really, it's far better to travel by yak. And this is what a POI does, in fact. The POI travels by yak. Well, no, he goes on foot, actually, or sometimes on the yak, I suppose, and delivers the mail that way.
Well, it's a kind of Tibetan postman who, if he can, gets a yak to ride on, otherwise walks. It's a sort of specific or medicine grilled out of something or other, and it's a type of firework. Patrick, I think you will have to
Even the thought of Donald Churchill playing with an imaginary firework chills my heart. I don't even want to think about him. Or the Eastern plant, absolute drivel. It cures to steer any kind of success. Absolute nonsense, Frank. It has to be a Tibetan postman on or off his yak.
That was Pauline.
Answer, please.
True or bluff?
It's a bluff, isn't it?
Oh, my God.
Very quickly now, we need to know who gave the true definition.
It isn't.
And there it is! It's the firework! It's the firework. So there you are. You know, it was a needle match all the way through, but now it's just decided, and if I got it right, I'm really not used to this anymore. I think that, no, it's the other fellow. Frank Muir and his team have won.
Well said.
But they only won by a whisker, just by 1 point. But we'll have another visit to the haunted wing of the Oxford English Dictionary next week. Until then, goodbye from Donald Churchill, Lord Kearton, Pauline Yates, Joanna Lumley, Frank Muir, Patrick Campbell, and goodbye. Don't bother. Not worth doing it the first time.
Off my very go, we haven't done the introduction. We've got to begin all over. Here we have that's it.
Yes. It's good it stops before we do that.
I know, Frank. I know my duties and obligations to everybody.
Joanna's on your left.
Loanna.
Joanna's wristwatch.
Loanna Jumley.
And Frank is non-wristwatch side.
Joanna Jumley.
Loanna Jumley.
And Frank.
Lohanna.
Fred Kendall.
30 seconds. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3.
Good evening. We have another instalment now of the television version of Liar Dice featuring Patrick Campbell.
Good evening. And once again, I have come into my aid the girl of 1,000 accents and only one beautiful face. She's called Joanna Lumley. And the other aid, it was a man who sacked himself from not a bad job and got a rather better one, Lord Kearton.
And Freddie Bartholomew, as a young man, is played by Frank Muir.
I see no reason at all to change even one of my victorious team from last week. So back comes the delectable Pauline Yates. And the less delectable but semi-fascinating Donald Churchill.
Let's try getting a word from the Oxford English Dictionary by Ding-a-ling. And, oh, it's not a bad one. Not a bad one. Not in common usage, but it's bum, doc, deuce, or something like that. And if I remember well, Patrick and his team will define bum, doc, deuce 3 different ways. They'll also pronounce it umpteen different ways, I don't doubt. Only one of the 3 definitions is the true one. That's the one that Frank Muir and company are going to try and pick. So what about this word, Patrick?
It's called Bumboctus. It's again believed to be of French origin, rather wrapped in mystery. It's played by 3 gentlemen. They're going to shake hands before they start, and then they go round and round trying to do their best to kick the other one in the posterior. There are no rules have come down to us from the medieval times, but a game of that, it didn't last very long. The people were trying to lose their temper.
A brutal sort of he, isn't it, really? Lord Kearton, it's your turn.
Oh, well, bum, doc, deuce is a malaise. Now, you're looking very surprised, but that's a condition of unhealthiness. And it's suffered by workers in West Indian rum distilleries. And the characteristics are that you have stupor, sort of inertia, and great sort of passivity, and a complete lack of decisiveness, and your personality, in fact, pretty well disintegrates. And it's caused by the heat and the overcrowding, and this will be well known, of course, to Frank, by the fumes from the molasses in the distillery.
Great.
Illnesses are always good for a laugh on this programme, you know. Now, Joanna.
Bum, doc, deuce, a word I find both unhumorous and humdrum, is just the local name for the blood-red variety of mignonette. Mignonette is a daisy, and it grows in the Channel Islands. And it's found particularly in the tiny, weeny island of Brecou. Do you know Brecou in the Channel Islands? It is abundantly growing on the grave of Saint Jules the Elder.
Yeah, well, it's an illness that everyone laughed at for no reason whatever. It's kind of a plant which Joanna did in a kind of an accent, and it's a rather nasty game of which Patrick spoke. Frank?
I haven't got it, no. I was concentrating, your voice suddenly sort of hit. I'm trying to sort this out.
Yes.
3 gentlemen going round kicking each other in the bum is not on. They don't call it that in French. So I don't think that can possibly be it. Why, if it's a rum disease, isn't it called rum, doc, deuce? You can't answer
synonymous in the West Indies.
How the devil do you know in this little island that this flower's crawling all over the grave? It is really very dispiriting, isn't it? I'll go for Paddy.
You go, well, who wouldn't? But, I mean, no, what he said it was this awful game, kicking people in the behind. True or bluff, Patrick?
I'm rather surprised.
really does mean this frightful game, which didn't go on very long, I'm sure, where people tried to kick each other. And now we have, well, what do you call it? Fatagin, I suppose. Frank?
Possibly, Fatagin. I'm not really certain of the pronunciation. But it's a little thing that you can observe without binoculars, pushing its way through the Malaysian jungle in search of its natural prey, which is ants. In fact, if David Attenborough is watching this programme now, no doubt his wife. What does it mean? And David will say, well, surely you're referring to the short-tailed, five-fingered, scaly anteater. And he'd be right.
Right. Then, Donald Churchill, it's your turn to define.
Fatagin. It's a very old-fashioned, antiquated, guided missile. It's made out of tow, that teased rope, which you dip in pitch and light, and you throw at the people you're attacking. And Fatagin. An old Jacobean poet, John Sylvester, I'm quoting from, with brakes and slings and Fatagins they play, to fire their fortress and their men to slay. Fatagan.
Absolute nonsense.
You did well.
Take that, Fatagan.
Wasn't too fussy about scansion, was he? No. Anyway, probably an off day. Pauline.
Yes, Fatagin is a model, or a model of a figure made from cork. In the early 1800s, Fatagins were very, very popular. In fact, it started in Italy, and there is a well-known 15-foot square model, which is a Fatagin, fashioned entirely in cork, and it's complete with gondolas and pigeons of St Mark's Square. St Mark's Square.
In cork?
In cork.
You wouldn't get it in the bottle.
It's not in a bottle.
St Mark's Square in Cork. I confused I thought it was two countries altogether. Well, it's a cork model as opposed from a model from cork. It's an anteater and it's an ancient weapon. Patrick.
But something of a loss here just for once. I don't think you can make a model out of anything made of cork except a cork, because if you cut it, it all falls to pieces and gets a jagged edge on it.
Cork shoes.
All this flame thrown in. What's David Attenborough doing in this programme anyway?
Well, he will be in a few weeks' time.
Really? He's coming?
Because it's an animal.
I see. How are you? All right?
Animal.
Good, yes. I believe, against all conceivable probability, it is the Vatican in cork.
You'd think it's... You'd think that's what Pauline Yates said, wasn't it? It was the cork, St Mark's Square in cork. No, it's a model.
A model?
A model, yeah. You said that. True or bluff, my dear? No, nothing to do with that. Now we need to know who gave the true definition. Someone did.
Yes, I got anything.
It's an altogether foreign type of anteater, as Frank said. And so we have ochre or ochre, I don't know. Frank Kearton will go.
Well, ochre is a sort of sun-hating but water-loving marsh primrose, and it flourishes under the rushes. And it grows quite a biggish plant with deep leaves and rather more darker leaves than you get in the ordinary garden primrose. And it's a favourite food for ducks. And in rural parts, the rural people say, with the delicacy for which they are noted, that the ducks eat this, that, as they put it, helps them to multiply. Not subtract, multiply.
Right. It's Joanna, it's your turn.
An ochre is a ploughman's boot. So when the ploughman homeward plods his weary way, it is with an ochre on each foot that he is shod. There's nothing extraordinary about an ochre, it's just a simple boot made out of untanned leather, a sort of leather welly. And when it's in service, it's normally covered with mud and other things ploughmen put their feet into, which I don't have to go into here. Just a boot.
You saucy minx. Now, Patrick.
If you've got an ochre, it's liable to cause you to cry out things like, oh. Oh. It's an old rustic word for a pain. In any muscle at all, you get all down, oh, my ochre, or even here, I see, all down the side as well. You can mostly call it, because a deltoid muscle, a big shoulder muscle, you've been digging the fields all day, you get an ochre and you cry, ouch, and that.
Well, now then, it's a ploughman's boot, it seems. It's a pain you can get anywhere. And it's, as if I got it right, an aphrodisiac primrose fed to ducks.
And swans.
And swans! And swans. Though the swans are sometimes reserved for the dogs. Donald, your go.
Yes. Well, Patrick Campbell's is Ochre the Pain. It's very good, but it seemed to be all over the place. I mean, if you get a pain there, you would call it a different name to what you have there. And it seemed to be one word that is everywhere. Yes. And you can't say I've got an ochre in the foot, an ochre under the armpit, an ochre everywhere. You know, you've got ochres everywhere. I think it's one word is doing too much work, I thought. That's why I can't accept that, I thought. Now,
some shrewd reasoning there.
The ploughman's boot, ochre, it's on his foot. It's a boot, isn't it? Like ochre. Veruca, I kept thinking of for some reason. Is that allied? Because I've had a veruca once, but I don't think it's that ochre. No, I think it's this shy, damp primrose that ducks find and eat underneath the thing. I think it's...
Well, that was Frank Kearton who said that. Now, he'll tell us whether it was true or whether it was a bluff.
They're too good for us.
Well done, Lumley. Great stuff,
No, nothing to do with that. True definition, if you please, one of you.
Oh, no.
Sometimes it really is a ploughman's boot, and it was that time. 2-1. Have another word. You're joking, surely. No, there must be... Well, perhaps there's a word called... and I think it's... Donald, yes, isn't it, to define?
Well, it's to... Because you know what I'm doing? I'm giving its onomatopoeia, actually, and it's the... I'm not doing it quite right. That's better. Because it must be fair to you. It's supposed to be the sound of a horn, not a motor horn, but you know the old fashion horn. And it says, I quote from the poem: "The horns of Elfland, faintly blowing." It's very difficult, no vowel, but that's it. It's a...
Right, now, follow that, Pauline Yates.
It's a Welsh word. To prove is a Welsh word. And the meaning is elation. It is Welsh elation, but elation in any language. And it is a sort of joyous sensation. You would see to prove on the face of a Welshman on listening to a poem by Dylan Thomas, maybe.
Right, Frank?
Must be me, mustn't it? The other... Yes. I think better have Donald again. It's very boring. Very, very boring. It's one of the older words in the Oxford Dictionary. One of the older words, Middle English, and it's tapro, and it probably means, in fact it does mean, a huntsman's snare. And it doesn't really matter what sort of snare it is, as long as it's a device for catching food or nothing else you catch, really.
No, except needles. Well, it's a snare, it's a Welsh happiness, joy, that kind of thing, and it's the note of a horn. Lord Kearton.
Well, I very much enjoyed Donald's acting of a horn laying an egg, and I hope it was a very successful egg and lots of little horns came from it. On the Welsh happiness, it couldn't be that, really. Welsh are very happy people anyway, and they've got so happy they have so many different words for it. This could be a word I've not come across before. But on balance, I rather think it is Frank's definition.
The snare. He did speak of that,
He looks
didn't
far
he?
too happy.
It's a funny word for it, but there you are, too on Bluff, Frank.
You, isn't it?
No, it doesn't mean that. Who gave the true definition of tupperoo? He did. Gives us a chance for an encore, really, doesn't it? Unless we hurry on very swiftly. It really does mean the sound of a horn. It couldn't really mean much else, could it? And now we have knurls, and it's Joanna Lumley's turn to define it.
Knurls are the very long tongs. I'll start all over again. Knurls are the long tongs which the blacksmith picks the hot horseshoe out of the fire with. Got to be long, because otherwise he'd hurt his hand. But they used to use knurls for a different purpose in the olden days during church services. If a stray dog or hind strayed into the proceedings and began to make a nuisance of itself, they'd pick up these tongs and knurl the dog out of the church by grasping it with the things.
In the hind
It's true. They'd simply knurl it out of the room.
In the hind quarters.
Right. Patrick. Yes, Patrick's go.
This is fairly complicated for non-nautical folk. It's the state of the tide is a knurl. You get a knurl tide. A knurl tide comes between the first and third quarters of the moon.
Second quarter.
Now hold on to your oars here, because you get a knurl tide at the... Can you remember old seafaring days? At the high water level when the lowest tide is up. And it's a good time for lugworm digging.
Now it's your turn, Frank Kearton.
Knurls, well, it's actually the knurls, and it's a sort of very angry, ugly red rash which Scottish children get. And it's not measles and it's not chickenpox. I suppose it's a sort of allergy, really. And what causes it, not very clear, but some people think it could be they eat haggis, which is overripe or out of season. Or alternatively, it could be pollen from a sporran, and things of this kind, actually. But that's what it is. It's a red rash, very ugly red rash, which Scottish children in particular get.
So it seems it's a blacksmith's tongs, it's the state of the tide, I don't be more precise than that, and it's a Scotch rash. Pauline Yates.
Well, I don't know why only Scottish children get it. Is it because if it's colder up there, why do they get more knurls?
It's the haggis.
I've never heard of any Scottish children getting that sort of thing. And then there's the high water level of the tide. Were you a sailor?
Oh, yes. Irish Navy, 4 years. Man and boy.
And then there's the long tongs and removing the dogs. I think I might give it to the sailor.
The tide. He said it was the state of the tide.
The high water level.
That old Irish seafaring man. Patrick, true or bluff?
You're the wrong sailor, darling.
Oh.
Very, very good, that was.
No, wasn't that. True definition now, coming up. 1, 2, 3. It's there somewhere. I think you've got it. Yes, yes. Knurls is a rash. Awful lot about in Scotland, it seems. 3, 2. Get another word. Nugger. Pauline Yates.
Oh, goodness. Well, nugger is a table delicacy. Asiatic gourmets absolutely love nugger. Not nougat, nugget, or nugget, but nugger. And it is, in actual fact, it's made from, it's a pale greenish translucent jelly. It's lovely to look at. And it's made from, that's mixed with goat's milk, sorry. Sorry, I'll start again. It's a pale green translucent jelly mixed with goat's milk and covered with caraway seeds and left to dry.
A drop of gravy on it.
Frank, your turn.
Recovered from that. Once aboard the Nougat, and Mahatma is mine, visualise the flowing Nile. Now, if you want to carry something along the Nile, merchandise, not people, not a dye or something like that, but a big, flat-bottomed boat, a Nougat, for merchandise, for sailing up and down the Nile, and a big merchant fleet might be perhaps 6 or 7 Nougats and 1 Falaka. I put that in as a little bit of amusement. For luck.
Wisely, I thought.
Your thumbprint on it.
Next, please.
Thank you. I don't see why you shouldn't do the both jobs. Donald?
Nougat. It's iridescent luster or bloom on oars. Not the oars you row, but the oars you dig out, you know, the metal, the copper. Is it copper pyrites or copper pyrites? I never know.
Pyrites would do.
Yes, pyrites. Or manganese oxides. And the stain is a rainbow-like stain of strips. It's got orange and it's got blue and brown on a yellow sort of base. And that's why sometimes it's called the peacock's tail tarnish.
Well,
you did well, lad.
It's a kind of awful jelly covered with goat's milk, among other things. It's a kind of a boat, and it's kind of a bloom on various minerals. I think it's Joanna's turn to pick one.
Now, when you said it once aboard the Nugger, Mahatma something is mine, that was not right, was it? It's once aboard the Lugger, isn't it? So
He meant it as a joke.
It was a joke.
Yeah.
It was a...
That's 2 jokes in the same definition.
Yes, I see.
What was Mahatma doing aboard the Nugger as well?
It doesn't matter. I'm not sure about this.
I'm on your team, then.
I didn't mean that.
Bill Vittiners, please.
Shall we address ourselves to the definition?
Big flat-bottom boat. No. Table delicacy, green jelly with goat's milk. Is too like nougat, is too like... Oh, she likes that, she agrees. Bloom on the oar. I'm glad you defined what sort of oar using that sort of accent. That was a bit near the knuckle for a family show.
Very near the knuckle, yes.
My accent?
Not your accent.
No, I haven't changed my mind completely from going to choose Donald. I'm now going to choose Pauline's table delicacy of green jelly.
The awful jelly
Yes, the awful,
of which
awful.
Pauline spoke. True or bluff, my dear?
No, she's now got that fake look of sorrow. It's...
No, nothing to do with that. We need to know now the true definition. One of them
I
gave it...
said it was a boat. I told you.
Kind of old cargo boat, that's what it is. Have another word. Puka is the next word, and Patrick, it's your turn to define it.
A puka, as you call it in Ireland, is yet another of those little people that are mostly working in Liverpool. They haven't seen Ireland for years, not for centuries. Little savage people with wildly glaring eyes, all working in Liverpool, on the roads, in the ditches, civil service, even Liverpool. A people in song and story, but it's a little Irish fairy-like thing with glaring eyes. What lives in Liverpool? That's not absolutely for sure. There's some left behind that haven't emigrated yet, but they are on the way.
Any in the south of France?
None. I had them cleaned out.
Now it's Frank Kearton's turn.
Well, Fuka is... when you press coconuts and get out the coconut oil, you're left with a sort of brown, hairy, matted mass at the end, and that's fuka. And it does have uses. The Tamils, for instance, of Malaya, who are very thrifty people, as you know, they use it partly as a fodder for their cattle, or they use it as manure for their gardens, but they make use of it. So it is this brown, hairy mass that's left after you squash the oil out of coconuts.
Right. Joanna.
Fuka is an artistic process when pictures of birds and butterflies and little pretty things are painted on rice paper, very sort of thickly, with very thick lumps of paint, and with no shading, just yellow, red, like this, really. Just no, just on. And in the Victorian